Hey everybody, we're back in the studio this week. Did get out this weekend and take some photographs. Went for a nature walk, but even at 6 a.m. there were tons of people in the park, so got minimal video. However, I did come away with 3 photographs that I did really like. We're going to dive here in the Lightroom, do another quick edit, show you how to make them pop. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. I'm going to start here with a prairie dog, and I really like how he's backlit there from the morning sun. But the side facing the camera is in the shadow, so we need to do a few adjustments and make him stand out a little more. I'm going to start with our masking, and I could do select object and paint him in. See how that works. And it actually worked pretty good. Missed a little bit of his paw there, but I don't think it's going to matter. You could also try select subject, and that actually worked a little better. It doesn't always, but we'll stick with that this time. And we will right click, duplicate, and invert mask. So now we have our subject matter and everything else. Starting with our subject matter, let's lift his exposure. Decent amount, almost a full stop there. I'm going to take his contrast down a little bit there. Lift some highlights. Lift some shadows, lift some whites, drop some blacks. I'm going to warm him up just so that he kind of looks like he's in that morning glow on his shadow side. And we'll add a little exposure, but we're going to do that with the S curve. I really like how the sun is hitting his arms here and giving that nice glow of the leaf he's eating. It's looking pretty good, but I want to brighten him up a little more, but I want it to look natural. So let's create a radial gradient, feather at 100, draw it in over him, and we'll do exposure up a little more. And that just kind of helps him not look like he's cut out and pasted there. All in all, that's looking pretty good. Let's go back to our mask and give his fur a little texture, make him pop a little more. Let's create another mask, a brush. We'll make it real small. Come up here to our navigator, zoom in on his face, and I'm going to paint in the eyeball. And choose Iris Enhance. It just kind of helps his eye pop a little more. And I really like that. You got some nice catch light in his eye. So now we'll hop over to our inverted mask. I want to create some contrast with a pretty strong S curve. Lift the exposure. We'll warm that up some as well, not too much. We're at 4 on the warmth. Let's take the highlights up some and the blacks down. I'm liking how that looks. Back to masking, radial gradient. Nice and big. Over our subject, click invert and drop the exposure. Just to kind of make your eye drawn towards the critter. Now we'll come over here to healing. I got this cobweb I don't like. We're in content aware. Let's just paint that out. It did a pretty good selection, pretty good job. Could refine that a little more. That looks a lot better. And taking a look at the final image here. Let's lift our shadows a small amount. Lift our whites a little bit. And I think that's looking pretty good. Here is our before. Here's our after. One more thing I might do change this to a 4:3 crop. Take it in a little and give this guy a little looking room to the left. There we go, I like that even better. Moving on over to image 2, we have some backlit leaves. I really like these abstract morning glow photos where you got a really good blur in the background and just a lot of texture in those leaves. But we're going to do a pretty heavy crop on this one. Get it in there, something about like that. We really will just want this diagonal line to kind of hit close to those intersections on the 1/3. There we go, that is actually looking pretty good. So this one's going to be nice and easy. Let's create an S-curve, give it some contrast, dropping our shadows and lifting our highlights. And we'll come up here, lift our highlights a little more, drop our blacks, lift our whites, drop our shadows, bring some texture into the image. Create a radial gradient. Draw out a long ellipse here. Rotate it so it's following our subject matter. And take our feather down some on this one. At about 40 there, so most of this won't be affected and then the rest will fade off. Click invert, drop our exposure. And there we go, I'm going to call that done. Here's our before, here's our after. Nice abstract photograph for you guys. Moving on to image 3. We have a duck in the morning glow. Looking at it, I know I want a 4:3 crop. And I'm going to get his eye here on an intersecting third line. I'm going to select subject, actually object. Let's paint this one in. Nice selection of our duck. Right click, duplicate and invert mask. And there we go, we have our two selections. Starting on the duck, I want to lift the exposure, not too much. I don't want clipping in his cheek and the highlights there. And drop the highlights a small amount. Lift it about a 1/4 of a stop. Let's take our shadows, lift them up a small amount. Our whites up, our blacks down, just to give them a little pop. Let's give this guy a little contrast. Now, I really like how the face is looking in his chest, but the body's a little dark. Let's create a new mask, radial gradient. This time I want to put the feather back at 100 so this looks nice and natural. And we'll lift the exposure there a small amount, warm it up to match the rest of his body, and I think that's looking pretty good. Let's go to our inverted mask now. I want to add a little bit of contrast, get some good pop between the blue shadows and the warm highlights in the water. Let's take the saturation up just a small amount to about 6. Got another mask, radial gradient. Nice and big. I'm going to lift our duck just a little more in the exposure. And we're going to right click, duplicate and invert mask, and do a little custom vignette. There we go, we got a nice pop there. Let's come on down to our color grading. I'm going to do each wheel individually, shadows, midtones, highlights. And I want to take the shadows and put a little turquoise color in there. So I'm going to take the saturation way up. It's not going to look good at first. Use the hue slider to find the color I want, which is right there, and then drop the saturation down until it's where I would like it. Same thing with the midtones, saturation up. I want to look for that turquoise color again, and then drop our saturation. And this turquoise is going to pop against that orange we're going to put in the highlights. So now highlights, same thing, saturation up. Find that orange we're looking for, and then dial it back down until it looks natural. So here's with our color grading off, and here's with it on. Very minimal, slight adjustment, but I rather like that. One thing I think I want to do, I'll come back here to our custom vignette and darken it down just a little more. There we go. I think that's done. Hope you guys enjoyed the edits. Thanks for watching. Until next time, this is Touchstone Pixels signing off.